Alright guys, so we have a fundamental understanding of how matrix multiplication works. We're going to go ahead and we're going to look at an example right here. So I have matrix A and I have matrix B, and my goal is to multiply A times B. So before we get started, the first thing you should probably do anytime you deal with matrices is label what their dimension is. So matrix A has 2 rows, 3 columns. So this guy's size or dimension is 2 by 3. This guy is 3 rows, 2 columns. So guess what? His size is 3 by 2. Remember, always rows before columns. Now, when someone asks you to multiply two matrices, the first thing you should ask yourself is, can these matrices be multiplied? So can this 2 by 3 matrix multiply this 3 by 2 matrix? And what you have to do is you have to compare the inside numbers. So if my two inside numbers match each other, then yes, we can multiply. So my two inside numbers here are both 3, so indeed they do match each other, then yes, we can multiply them. Okay, now the second question what you should be asking yourself is, what is the dimension of the resulting matrix? So the dimension of the resulting matrix is given by the outer numbers. So the inner numbers, 3 and 3, tell us whether or not the matrices can be multiplied. But these outer numbers right here tell us what the size of the resulting matrix is. So we know that the resulting matrix has a size 2 by 2. So if you do A times B, you'll get some matrix C, and it's going to have the dimensions 2 by 2. So because it's 2 by 2, it's going to have 4 different entries. So that's where these 4 question marks come from. And now our goal is to figure out what each of these question marks are, right? What is the value of each of those question marks? So how do we go about finding what those values are? Well, we had to do something called the dot product. And the dot product is just multiplying a row vector by a column vector. If you don't remember what that is, watch the previous video. So let's go back up here. So I need to calculate the dot product, meaning I'm going to multiply each row of column A with each column of matrix B, right? So each row of matrix A will be multiplied by each column of matrix B. So for example, my first entry will be row 1 of matrix A multiplied by column 1 of matrix B. So my first entry will be their dot product. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the first row of matrix A by the second column of matrix B. So that means my second entry is going to look like this, right? The dot product of these two guys. And I'm going to continue in this pattern, where now I'm going to take row 2 of matrix A and multiply it with column 1 of matrix B, and I'll take row 2 of matrix A and multiply it by column 2 of matrix B. And then you'll get all you'll get 4 different values, and those are your inputs for your resulting matrix. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's find the dot product of each of these guys. So these two numbers right here, they indicate which row I'm using and which column I'm using. So this first one right here represents that I'm using, whoa, that was not supposed to happen. Let me just erase that real quick. Okay, this first one right here represents that I'm using row 1 of matrix A and then column 1 of matrix B. So I'm trying to find the dot product of those two vectors. So remember how to do the dot product. I multiply each of the same entry, meaning I'm going to take the first term, multiply them together, and I'm going to take the second terms, multiply them together, And then I'm going to take the third terms and I'm going to multiply them together. And once I multiply all three of those, I'm just going to take the sum of them. And that means my first entry, C11, is going to be 58. And the cool thing about this notation is that not only does it tell us which two vectors that we're finding the product of, but it also tells me where on my resulting matrix I should be putting this. So this guy is C11. That means in my resulting matrix, he's going to go in column 1, row 1. So he'll go right here, column 1, row 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the dot product of each one of these guys, right? We're going to now we're going to find the product of row 1, column 2, and following the same method, we're going to find that the result is 64. So 64 will go in row 1, column 2, so right here, and so on and so forth. So we're going to do this 4 times. We're going to have 4 different results. Make sure you guys pause the video and you're able to do the math correctly. I hope my math is correct. And you're going to come down to your empty matrix, your empty resulting matrix, and it kind of helps to fill in the unknowns, right? So you have C11, C12, C21, and then C22. It's good to make this intermediate step because you won't end up switching the numbers around accidentally. So what we're going to do is we're going to place each of these values into our resulting matrix, and you'll get a nice little 2 by 2 matrix. So this means if we multiply matrix A by matrix B, this 2 by 2 square matrix will be our resulting answer. All right, guys. Now let's look at the second example.